it's nice to finally have you, and very exciting to hear you coming back here again.
Yes, I'm very glad and looking forward to it.
Were you aware of the, I guess, mythic kind of status that your original gig in Melbourne had taken on over the years? I mean, you played here in 2007, obviously, but your first gig became this event that people would kind of talk about in hushed tones. It was like, were you at that hi-fi bar gig, and were you aware of that?
No, I mean, people have told me that they liked that show and they were excited about us coming back, but I wasn't. I guess, I mean, you always hope that the shows are memorable, but no, not until you say this now was I aware that it was maybe this legendary. I guess when they came back and did Meredith Festival and played some solo shows, people mentioned that show, but I'm happy to hear that people remember it at all.
Yeah. Well, I guess it kind of seems to be a bit of a theme with you. I mean, I saw you give a talk last year at NYU, and I ran into these guys out the front who'd driven, 6 hours from Delaware or something to be there. What do you suppose it is that draws people to you in that manner? Because I think the Andrew WK thing is kind of polarizing in that way. You sort of seem to have either really dedicated fans or people have never heard of you.
Or there's been hatred. I mean,
yeah, well, there's that too.
Thinking about, I mean, I guess with everybody, you either like it with any kind of person or a place, or you're either going to love it, or you're going to hate it, or you're not going to be aware of it. Or I guess the third one is that you've been exposed to it, but you have no reaction at all. That to me is the worst one. I'd rather people never have heard of me than have heard of me and just have no reaction at all. And you want to connect with people. That's the whole point. And connecting with them in any way counts, to me at least.
Yeah.
My ideal is that they feel good about the experience, but if it generates anger or hatred, that can be have positive effects in a roundabout way, despite it maybe being seen as a negative reaction. I just don't know that if you're really performing and entertaining people, then you just want them to be engaged. We've heard this said many, many, many times over and over again. It used to upset me a lot more when people would be upset by something I had done or be angry at me or have hatred towards me. But then I realized that's just part of the dialogue, and a lot of people, also what you learn now that I've been doing this for a few years, is that some of the people that hated me most and were most angry about me were the people that became my biggest supporters a year or two later. So I always keep that in mind. We're all changing our minds. We all have the ability to change our minds, and sometimes, from my personal experience, things that I had very strong negative reactions to, it was almost like I couldn't handle it, and as the years went on, it became one of my favorite things, either a person I couldn't get along with, or a movie I never understood, or a book I never could really get into, or a song that I thought I hated and then found years later myself singing it and totally get into the whole phenomenon. So I always give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and I'll just keep doing my best to give them something to think about.
Well, I've even seen that happen firsthand, particularly that gig, but also I guess the NYU one and even the 2007 gigs. There's kind of the crossed arm brigade who start out, they stand there and they go, oh, what is this? Or this is stupid. And by the end of it, they're the ones up on stage getting a piggyback, punching the air.
Yeah, well, that is very satisfying. That, to me, it's almost more satisfying than the person who has loved you from the beginning and never had any doubts. I'm extraordinarily grateful for that type of support and those friends, fans, people in your life that never have doubts. But, of course, it's a great challenge to overcome someone else's doubts and to work with them until they find a way to get to that state. Because that is the state that I want to be in, that state of joy, of punching the air with excitement and enthusiasm, just a raw type of happiness that isn't for a specific reason or caused by a specific event, but more just a pure joy at being alive at all. And music is a great way to get to that state, but entertainment is a great way to get to that state. Laughter is a great way to get to that state. Eating food you love is a great way to get to that state. But I provide this certain way for people to get to that state, and if I can get them there, that's just it's a very meaningful type of work to be involved in.
Was that what led in part to your lecture series and I suppose if you want to call it motivational speaking?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a lot of sort of circumstances, business-wise and some personal ones that made that shift into doing self-help lectures possible. But at the same time, the whole idea was, well, what other ways can I use within this business, within this industry, to get this feeling across? And it did happen very organically in my mind, because I started to realize that I would meet people that maybe had never heard my music but saw something on TV that I did, or never bought one of my albums but read an interview where we discussed something that really they related to. And I started to realize, well, wait a minute. If people are getting this feeling of excitement and joy and coming away with this, if they're coming away from this with something good, then I should exploit all those other avenues. I should take advantage of. I want to reach as many people as possible, and I don't want people to have to like everything I do if they can still get the main point, this main message, that feeling of joy, of excitement, of potential, of possibility. That's just a raw energy of motivation, and I wanted to use every mode that I could to get there, really, every style of entertainment or expression, or however you want to describe it.
Yeah.
The words and talking are just as good and better for some people, as far as getting them into that state of mind.
Well, I suppose the thing is, for people like you and I who like metal, I mean, you know that you can get that catharsis and that good feeling from that kind of music, but I think a lot of people do really have a block on anything that comes under the kind of the banner of heavy metal. And so that was the true genius of it, I suppose, was that they didn't realize they were being preached to by somebody who was cut from that cloth.
Yes, perhaps so. Perhaps so. I don't know what to think of me. I mean, I don't know that I think of it as a hard rock.
Yeah.
I love heavy metal and more than heavy metal, like death metal and thrash metal and speed metal and black metal. I love all that so much that out of respect, but not, in my mind, not being as heavy as those bands, I've tended to call us a rock group. But there's plenty of people, usually older than me, usually my parents' age, who just don't like loud music in general, no matter what it is. And I want to be able to communicate with those people. I don't care if they don't like my music. I consider it a real accomplishment to get through to anyone. And that's my main focus. My main focus is to make music. My main focus is to create this sensation, this physical feeling. And music just happens to be one of the best ways to do that, but certainly not the only way.
I guess the flip side of that, too, is the stuff that you've done outside of the typical Andrew WK sound, whether it's, piano-based things like your recent album, or, jazz, or To Live and Shave. Is it important to you to keep your horizons open in that way?
I don't know. It was never a real formal decision. The only formal decision I ever made regarding this type of work or what I would do was to never work with other people. That way, I came from growing up in Michigan. There was just all there was collaboration and being in a million bands and working with somebody around and just hanging out and doing stuff all the time. And when I moved to New York, I made this decision to only do Andrew WK. I wasn't going to work with anybody else. I was going to barely talk to anybody. I really limited my life down to a very singular focus, and that was great, and it was necessary in order to do what we did in those beginning years. But then it became clear that it was time to contradict that, and I just opened everything back up again and allowed my instincts to run free and follow those impulses wherever they led me. But like someone like To Live and Shave in LA, that goes back all the way to Michigan. That's where I first met Tom Smith, and a lot of the stuff that I had been interested in, I just swore off of. And then once I had done that, basically around 2005, I decided to let myself have personal interest again. I really wanted to break myself down in terms of what I liked, what made me, my tastes, my preferences, and shatter all of that by doing Andrew WK and prove to myself that I'm not made up of my tastes. I'm not made up of my beliefs even. I'm barely even made up of my ethics and morals. It's something beyond that. And I wanted to test and challenge those kinds of limitations and make more limitations to see what it felt like. And at the end of the day, I just let myself be myself again and into whatever I was into. I want people to know that I liked To Live and Shave in LA. I didn't want people to get confused. There was just too much information there's too many things to present, so I just focused it down.
Mm. And it almost feels, though, musically, as though that has been reflected in your output, because there was a kind of quiet period, at least as far as Andrew WK was concerned, and it feels like, even if it's just in a touring sense, things are kind of gearing up again now, or they have been over the last 2 or so years.
Yeah, well, it's been a lot of resolution. Again, they're business issues. I call them personal issues because they're choices that I made, so I take responsibility. But I made a lot of choices. I'm not going to say bad choices, just particular choices that limited me in other ways and gave me great freedom and opportunities on the flip side. But those choices complicated things for me a great deal. From 2004, mainly 2005, is when everything started to change. Just with the team that I had been working with, we had a really bad falling out. Just people. And over these last 5 years, we've, amazingly enough, been able to piece it back together and more or less repair all the damage that had been done, all the bad feelings and bad vibes. And actually now, we're really in a better position than we were in even in 2000, or 1999, when I first signed up for all this. So it's been a wild road. I never would have imagined that I would be here at all. So I can't complain. I really wouldn't have it any other way. But it's been very intense and grueling over the last 5 years. It's like an ordeal. But once you go through the ordeal and you can see it as having been a test of faith in those ordeals, it makes it not only a lot less depressing or frustrating, but it actually makes you grateful that you get to learn these lessons. I'm grateful that I had bad times or hard times or difficulties, because I learned just a tremendous amount from it, and I'm still here. So
yeah, and I suppose the payoff for the listener or the audience is that is then reflected in the passion behind the music.
I hope so. I hope that I'm just glad to still be working, and I apologize to people for the difficulties that we've had, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I hope that mainly it can just be left in the past and not get in the way of us enjoying what this is supposed to be.
Yeah. So along those lines too, I guess there was a period where you had a lot of releases which were either Japan only or limited edition, and it strikes me as interesting that now that you're on this kind of crest of a new wave, we've had the Close Calls with Brick Walls re-release this year worldwide. Was that a conscious decision, or is there new stuff on the boil as well in terms of recorded music?
Now a new album can be made, which is the most exciting. We've been holding off and trying to time this right for the last 5 years as well. But again, I'm really glad that it worked out this way, because we have more opportunities now. It's going to be better, a better release, a better album, in my mind, than it ever would have been any other way. So at the same time, I can't rush it. So we're hoping to get a new album out in 2011. But yeah, it was satisfying just to be able to get out Close Calls with Brick Walls to people outside of Asia. That was a big step, but those were just ways, hopefully, to tide people over, to keep things out there, to do things we hadn't done before. But still, my focus is definitely gearing up to this new album and being able to release some older albums that I have been working on for the past 5 years as well. But first, a proper new album, Andrew WK Party Music, will be released. And that's, I've wanted to do that for the last, 7 years, but have had to find ways to bide our time until that could happen.
Yeah. So what can we look forward to with the new record?
Just the most exciting songs I can make.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I'm really excited not only to record it and get it out there, but then to go and play all around the world again. Going to Australia in January is going to be very thrilling for us, because we've been doing a lot of touring in the U.S. This past year. We did the Warped Tour, and we just did a month-long tour. Ended a week, 2 weeks. So the band is back together. We're on the road. The future in the horizon is very, very bright, but at the same time, it all feels like it's been leading to this. It feels like it was like the whole story was meant to go this way, and now we're going to party harder than ever. And when you tell me something like this first show we played in Australia has a a life of its own and people's minds and memories. That's so encouraging to think that sometimes, I mean, even over these past 5 years, or even since coming to Australia that first time so long ago, that things have still been building, that people are still finding out about this and still finding value in this feeling that we're presenting. That's very encouraging, and it makes me not only have hope and a lot of gratitude, but also that belief that, wow, we really are still at the beginning of this, and this could blow up and the party could get bigger than ever.
Yeah, I mean, it really has. It not just that gig, but I suppose the music as well. And I mean, we're used to here in Australia being far away from everything, so you do grab onto stuff and hold on to it, but it felt like that gig and in that era, you know, it really connected with people. And so there's been this kind of growing faithful. And then whenever there's been a new record or another tour, like the last Meredith tour, you know, there've kind of been more people jumping on the bandwagon. So I think, you know, the excitement levels ahead of the Big Day Out tour is reaching fever pitch.
Wow, amazing. Well, we had been hoped to, over the years, we had heard about Big Day Out, and there had been talk about us playing it years ago, and we always hoped we would get invited. And to be invited now, to me, is the craziest thing, because this is the least likely time I think we expected to be asked. But it just goes hand in hand with when you're ready, the universe responds. When you're resolved and in that place where you can deliver, then opportunities will come to you. And it just, again, makes me very, very thankful, very humbling, and very, very, very appreciative of the chance to do this. That people want us. It's amazing.
That's so amazing. And the person who went to see your show all those years ago is very excited to have recorded that. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see you here next year.
Thank you for your kindness.
No worries. Keep up the party.
Party hard, always.